Welcome to Agile Clips, where we break down Agile into manageable pieces. In today's show, your hosts Steve and Santosh discuss retrospectives with a lot of tips to make retrospectives efficient and valuable.
Hey Steve, long time. We haven't chatted.
Hey Santosh.
So I've been through some kind of coaching slash teaching slash mentoring sessions, and what I'm constantly being reminded is that people don't, or teams don't put as much importance to retros. I mean, the retros really are a stepchild in the entire agile process. And you have some good ideas, good experiences. So why don't we start from the end of the cycle and look at retro and why they are important?
Yeah, it's interesting you say the end of the cycle. It's funny because there are really only four major commitments that you have to make in terms of ceremonies, and one of them is the retrospective. And as you say, it's a stepchild, and people don't realize just how important it is.
Yeah, because people don't even show up for retrospective.
Absolutely, that's so true. But it really is important, because how can you improve if you don't look back and try and fix the problems in your process or the way you work? So it's, of
Yeah,
course, super important.
yeah, and I think it's the point of view of how people look at retro. It's not a report card, it's learning card, and that where nobody likes to read their own report card, and that's why people don't show up, because it's like how did you do this time kind of almost evaluation, and then that's what people think. I think that is the misconception.
Right. And in fact, one way of changing the culture is to have retrospectives not only for sprints, but for other things that are done. So the obvious one is at the end of a release. In the old days, we used to call them a post-mortem.
Yeah.
Now we call it a release retrospective. But even after a long meeting, let's say you do sprint planning and you spend 2 hours doing sprint planning. It's good at the end to spend 5 minutes and just say what went well, what could we have done better, how can we improve sprint planning next time. And if you keep reinforcing that message, not only at the end of a sprint, but in all these other cases, eventually people get it, that it's just a way of doing a quick check. It doesn't have to be very lengthy, but it's a way of saying, okay, let's make it even better next time, whatever it is that we did.
Yeah, I think what I realized is that what went well sometimes gets misconstrued, and maybe the question should be what went well and why. I think that might give the right context of because yeah, I completed this. Well, that doesn't mean what did you do differently that actually made it successful. I think that's the learning aspect of it. So people don't look at it that way. If we just change little, I guess tweak, that may be more interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other key to make people realize the value is to make sure that you actually make improvements. So, one of the tips is, first of all, during the retrospective itself, make sure that you come out with some actionable items, and until the team is really adept at it, make it just one item so that people can focus on it, and then afterwards say, oh yes, we decided to do that one thing and we accomplished it and we see a benefit. If you try and do 10 things, then probably none of them will get done.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that I've asked some of my coaching instances is that I ask them to create a story for the next sprint and say, this is what we are going to do. And owners is the entire team. So that it doesn't just become a lip service, so that the same thing gets repeated again all throughout the life of the next cycle. It could be release, it could be sprint. you need to pay attention what we are going to make a difference.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. So make sure that you track it. So
Correct.
make it a realistic goal, track it and follow up and discuss with the team. How did it go? Did we make the improvement? Do we see the benefit?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then make any fine tuning in the subsequent sprint.
Right. And then the other thing that often happens is there's some debate regarding who should be in the retrospective. Let's focus on sprint retrospective. So there's always a concern if there's a manager who's a people manager who wants to be there, and you have to really tell them you can't be because you're not a active team member. But on the other hand, the scrum master and the product owner should definitely be there. They are part of a scrum team. So they have to be there, even though sometimes the criticism is of the product owner because either they didn't define things properly or they were not clear with the user stories or whatever it may be.
But that's part of the learning anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's basically as you said, it's a team ownership. It's team and the scrum master and PO. It could be some of the things that scrum master did not do, but that is what it is actually needed to be highlighted, saying that, oh, Mr. Scrum Master, you did this, and that really helped us a lot. So can we keep on doing this over and over? So it goes both ways. But the team has to own the whole aspect of retro and learning.
Right, and also whoever's facilitating the meeting, and it doesn't always have to be the Scrum Master, by the way, but whoever's facilitating the retrospective should make sure that everybody contributes.
Exactly.
Because it is all about the team.
Yeah, and I think you had some good ideas about how to make everybody contribute, because there are some backbenchers and shy people in the group kind of thing. So I would love to hear some of the ideas that you have tried.
Right. So there's one technique I really like, and it's great because it works even when you have a very large number of people. So, for example, if you're doing a release retrospective, you might have multiple teams, and I've literally had sessions with 60, 70 people and done a retrospective in 1 hour and come out with really good results. And this particular technique involves breaking the whole group into pairs. So you get lots of pairs of 2 people, and you ask them to have a discussion amongst themselves very briefly, maybe a couple of minutes, and come up with the 3 actionable things they would like to change and why. And again, it's this idea of, even with a very large group, you don't want to come out with 10, 20 action items of things to improve, because it's just not realistic. So you get people to focus on 3, let's say, and then once you give them 2-3 minutes, and then you ask, okay, now pairs, please pair with another pair. So now you have groups of 4 people, and they discuss the 3 items that they each had in each previous pair, and they come up with the new 3 items, the top 3 items for those 4 people, and then you double them up again into 8 and 16 until everybody is in one large group. And
yeah, so it's like a pyramid slowly coming together.
Right. And that way everybody has contributed. The best ideas are percolating up to the top. And then when you get the final discussion, it's really very few items that is really like a majority decision of things that need to be rectified, or we just agree we did really well and we should keep doing.
Yeah, makes sense. That's a great idea. And that can be done even with the smaller teams. Like if you have 10 people, you can have 5 pairs and then quickly crystallize to the changes you want to make very quickly.
Right, definitely. The other tip I would give is there's a famous book on how to run Agile retrospectives, which is called Agile Retrospectives, Making Teams Great by Esther Darby and Diana Larson. And of course, I will put a link in the show notes. But in that book, they essentially say that there are 5 phases to the retrospective. The first is to set the stage. The second is gather the data. then generate insights, then decide what to do, and then close the retrospective. And what I've found is, going back to your point where people don't attend because they say they're too busy or they don't see the value in the retrospective, one of my tips usually is collect your thoughts as the sprint is going on. There's no reason why that has to be part of the overall retrospective. So let's say it's a 2-week sprint, as the 2-week period goes on, things happen, people observe them, they make a note, and then they come ready to discuss them at the retrospective. So that way you can save a few minutes, and it's more interesting to the team because they already had some ideas of things they wanted to discuss and they're ready to do it.
Yeah, and those ideas are closer to when they actually happen, in the sense that the story might have gone well, or something that happened really well. They immediately talk about that or list it down there, and then go back at the end, because these kind of memories are very short-lived, and people don't remember, even just a week back.
Yeah, right. And that's a good segue into another technique I was thinking of bringing up, which is one way of running the sprint is the retrospective is to draw on a whiteboard a straight line which represents each day of the sprint. And then you have team members write on post-it notes, of course, what went well and what didn't go well, and they put them along that line, which represents the duration of the sprint. And the higher up they put the sticky above the line, it means the better that particular item went during the sprint. So, for example, we started collaborating in some new way, and it was really great. So you put a post-it high up above the line, or if it was only a mild improvement, you put it closer to the line. And then you do a similar thing with what went badly during the sprint. This is when you didn't collect these thoughts during the sprint, but still it really helps to try and put things along the timeline, because not every day during the sprint goes equally well or badly. So perhaps it's the build system broke on the first Wednesday of the sprint and everybody was blocked for a day. So you now remember, oh yes, that's what happened on that Wednesday, and so you'll get a bunch of tickets around that area saying what went well, how people recovered, what the problems were, and so on.
Yeah, and I know one of the thing that about the two steps that you said about setting the stage and gathering the data, what I recommend my teams is open the retrospective with the burn down, burn up chart. And that tells you some of the things about how did the sprint went. Did we deliver what we started with? Did we do it in a nicely staggered way, or was there like a big cliff at the end? And did we finish all the stories that we started with? And then looking at the burn up chart and saying, are we keeping track or keeping up with what we are supposed to deliver at the overall goal? How are we doing there? So that generates some of the insights into, some of the things could be like, yeah, the system went down, or our automated testing is not working correctly, or whatever those things are. But
yeah,
that's like a heartbeat of the entire system.
Absolutely, that's a great tip. So yeah, the other thing, as we mentioned earlier, that it's really important to make things actionable. And what happens sometimes with newly formed teams is that they will kind of use the retrospective as an opportunity to moan and bitch about things. And it's really important to make things actionable. So that's one of the things to consider as well. As we said earlier, there's, the phases usually are generate insights and decide what to do. But another trick is to have people pre-think what they would suggest should be done as an improvement and why. So that makes sure that really coming out of the, when you get into the discussion part and make decisions about what to do, it's much more, geared towards action rather than just moaning and bitching.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I also ask my teams is when you say we should do better or this could be done better, I always ask them, okay, then what will you do to improve it? So now it becomes, the giving advice is much more easier. executing that advice is it takes ownership and doing. Next time you do 100 push-ups. That's the way we should do it. How many are you going to do? So it's like make it relatable, make it own them, so that if you say, yeah, we should do a better job of asking questions. Okay, well, what kind of questions are you going to change? So then it becomes, the ownership comes back to the team and individual saying, I'm not just, this is what I'm going to contribute. That makes it more real and relatable.
Right, absolutely. I also like a point that you made recently to me about that eventually, after making a lot of improvements, the team really reaches like a plateau of what they can achieve on their own, and they now need to go and get outside help.
Funny you should mention that, because recently, in a couple of cases that we had, they realized that they have tried everything that they could, but unless and until, for example, the test server that they had, unless that is the size and stuff like that, that gets improved, their testing is not going to improve. The testing time that is happening and all that, it's not going to improve. So it's not just that team's control. They had to go to the management or architects or somebody else outside that team. And that's when the ownership actually turned to the scrum master saying, hey guys, can you raise this impediment to the next level? And in next sprint, how are we going to handle that? So they felt like, yeah, there is a way to escalate some of the challenges they are seeing, and there is a path to it. Now people started attending that, because then they had a lot of things to contribute, saying that this is stopping us, this is stopping us, can we go to the next level?
Also, it's totally unrelated to what you just said, but another thing happened to me recently working with a group that's launching a product, and we're all used to, again, in the old days, doing a post-mortem at the end of a project, and the marketing team asked everybody to participate in a pre-mortem. And the idea was to think about the launch of this product and then work backwards and basically say, in order for us to have a very positive retrospective, if you like, but to be successful, what are the things that could go wrong? And let's prevent them from happening rather than wait till they happen. So I've never really thought about applying that with a agile team, but that could be an interesting experiment.
In case of program increment planning, that's what we do. Identify the risks for getting this plan executed, just like releasing the product, and roaming the risks that either they are resolved, owned, accepted, or mitigated. So that way, everyone understands, if something happens, this is what the resolution is or disposition of that risk is. But that's a great technique, so that you know what to watch out for, so that you already prepared to do some action or respond to it. But that's a great idea.
Great. Well, I think we've covered this topic.
Yeah.
As soon as we finish the recording, we should do a retrospective to see how the recording process went.
But funny you should mention that, because we do actually do a retrospective of retrospective. So yes. At the end of the retrospective, we actually ask the team saying, was this useful? Will you come back again next time? And what will it make more interesting? And did you really learn something, or it was just blah? So it's actually, having the retro of retro is a good thing.
Definitely.
All right.
We encourage everyone to really pay attention to retrospectives, and we'll be happy to get feedback if through any of the channels where the podcast is available. If people have any feedback for us, retrospective on the podcast they listen to, we'll be very happy to get that information.
So can you please give them where they can send us the feedback? I think you have a link, right?
Yes, there is a link to a Google form. It happens to be on the Podbean website. The link should appear also in show notes in other locations too. But it's labeled podcast feedback form, and we would love to hear from our audience.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Santosh.
Talk
Bye,
to you soon.
everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.